I'm going to call today's regular meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission of Napa County, also known as LAFCO, to order. It is Monday, December 4th at 2 o'clock. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Chair Moeller. Vice Chair Cottrell.
Here.
Commissioner Leary.
Here.
Commissioner Painter.
Here.
Commissioner Ramos.
Here.
Commissioner Gallagher.
Here.
Commissioner Khan.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Abudamas is absent today, and we have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. If we're all able, could we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And if there aren't any changes, can I get a motion and a second to approve today's agenda?
Madam Chair, may I add a comment about the agenda, please?
Yes.
So staff belatedly noticed that there were some issues with the agenda packet. The agenda itself is fine and no changes to the agenda. However, the packet itself that went out last Wednesday had quite a few items that were redundant, and there were also a couple of missing attachments. And so in particular, action item 7B and action item 7C were each missing attachment 1 to each of them. And so staff has brought the attachment 1 for item 7B, the Sierra Avenue Villa Lane annexation. That is a hard copy that you should all have in front of you. And there are extra copies for the audience if they would like to see that. That's the draft resolution. For item 7C, the attachment is about 60 pages, so we did not bring hard copies, but everything is on the website. It's all been fixed on the website, so if you load the full packet, all of the duplicative items are now gone. It's just one of each item. So staff apologizes for that oversight. We ran into a few last-minute chaotic issues. None of this will prevent the commission from moving forward with any items on the agenda today.
All right, thank you. So with that, could I get a motion and a second to approve today's agenda?
Move approval of the agenda.
I second.
So motion by Painter, a second by Leary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That passes unanimously. Now it's time for public comment on anything that is not on today's agenda. If you'd like to come up to the podium. See nobody coming forward, I will close public comment and we'll move on to our consent items. We've got 10 consent items. If nobody wants to pull any items, will entertain a motion in a second to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was motion by Leary, second by Cottrell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we will move on to our one public hearing for today. And I will turn it over to staff to introduce the item, and then I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. This item involves 4 separate actions that are being requested of the commission today. And we have a presentation. This is the only item on today's agenda that will have a PowerPoint presentation. And we have representatives of the Napa Valley Unified School District in the audience today, and they would like an opportunity to present essentially the second half of the presentation. So I'll be getting to that momentarily. So this item is mostly being requested by the school district. There is one piece I'll explain in a moment is actually being requested by the city of Napa, but all 4 items will be included on this single item on the commission agenda today. The project involves the school district's new Vintage High School Farm project, which we're also referring to as an agriculture science / technology innovation center. The location of the project will be 1130 Trower Avenue, which is in the unincorporated Napa County area. It is contiguous with the city of Napa. The city of Napa is to the immediate west of this parcel. It is currently a vacant 12.8 acre parcel. And the application materials, along with an executive summary provided by the school district, are included with the staff report as attachment 5. Next slide, please. Oh, no problem. We're there. So this slide shows the 4 separate actions that are being requested of LAFCO today. Those action items are to amend the City of Napa's sphere of influence to include the entirety of the parcel, amend Napa Sanitation District's sphere of influence to include the entirety of the parcel, annex the entire parcel to the Napa Sanitation District, and finally approve an outside service agreement with the City of Napa to provide water service to the parcel. Next slide, please. So I've got a couple of maps in the presentation. Some of these are in the staff report, and I'm not showing all of the maps that are in the staff report, but these ones I think do a good job of depicting where the property is in relationship with the boundaries that LAFCO has jurisdiction over. And so this first map shows the location of the parcel. It also shows the City of Napa and Napa Sanitation District spheres of influence and their jurisdictional boundaries. And so what you're looking at is the red outline is the entire parcel. You can see it's being split by some lines through the middle. The bold black line is the City of Napa's sphere of influence. The blue dashed line is the Napa Sanitation District sphere of influence. And then you also see the gray area to the west and to the far south of this parcel. That is the City of Napa's jurisdictional boundary. And then we have blue hatch marks to the west and to the far south, which depict Napa Sanitation District's jurisdictional boundary. Next slide, please. This map shows only boundaries that relate to the City of Napa because this is a significant reason why the project is being requested the way it is. In particular, remember, annexation is only being sought for Napa Sanitation District. We're not considering annexation to the City of Napa, but rather we are considering an outside service agreement for the City of Napa. And one of the main reasons for that is that the portion of this project that will be north of the sphere of influence is also north of the city's rural urban limit line, or RUL for short. And property that is located outside of the city's RUL cannot be annexed into the city. However, the portion of the property that requires service from the city is located on that northern portion outside the RUL, and therefore you cannot annex that piece to the city at this time. So next slide, please. Some brief background, and the school district will provide more information momentarily. Back in 2018 was when the school district first prepared and certified their CEQA documents for this project, which at the time assumed the project would be served by groundwater, and therefore it was not contemplated that they would need water service from the City of Napa. Then in 2020, the school district came before LAFCO, and that was likely before most of the commissioners present today were even on LAFCO. So you may not know this, but the school district came to LAFCO requesting a waiver of our policy that would have otherwise required concurrent annexation into both the Napa Sanitation District and annexation to the city of Napa. Typically, we would require both for a project like this, but the commission at the time gave a conceptual approval. It was not a formal approval because we could not formally approve that waiver of our policy when there was not a project in front of us to take action on. So it was more of a head nod approval that we agreed we would work with the school district on this and not require annexation into the city of Napa. And so then in 2023, it became known that the project would require public water service from the city of Napa after all, and that's explained in the executive summary in attachment 5, and the school district certainly will touch on that during their portion of the presentation. This required some changes to the CEQA documents, because remember, the CEQA documents that were finalized in 2018 did not contemplate public water service from the city. But now the new version of the project does require water service from the city. So school district prepared and adopted an addendum to their initial study and mitigated negative declaration to modify the project description and contemplate the potential impacts that are associated with having the city extend water service to the project. Next slide, please. So this slide is fairly generic. The staff report goes into quite a bit more detail, but this is to highlight that there are statutory considerations. That's the CKH portion. And there are also local policy considerations that we must address. And so all of this is addressed in the staff report and the attachments. And so whenever LAFCO makes a decision on a sphere of influence, we must make written determinations on 5 specific factors, and those are included in attachments 1 and 2. Those are both draft resolutions for the sphere amendments. Look to one of the exhibits, I think it's exhibit 2 to each of those draft resolutions, and you'll find those written determinations. So that's a statutory piece. Separate from that, we have our own local policy on spheres of influence, and we included that policy as attachment 6 to the staff report. And staff combed through that policy and found every policy subsection that appears to be relevant to this project, and we provided a staff response to those, and everything appears to be consistent with LAFCO's mission as it relates to preserving agricultural lands and providing for logical and orderly growth. So that's just the sphere of influence piece. Next, we have the annexation piece. And so CKH requires LAFCO to address, I believe it's up to 16 or 17 factors now for any annexation. And those are addressed in attachment 7 to the staff report. Everything appears to be consistent. And then we also have our local policy on proposals, which includes things like annexations. Our policy is included as attachment 8. All of the relevant policies are addressed in the staff report. And then finally, we also have the outside service agreement piece. We have a local policy on outside service agreements included as attachment 9. I believe there is only one relevant policy there that has to do with outside service agreements that are within the sphere of influence, but do not involve a public health or safety threat. And there must be annexation being anticipated at some point. And this is not the first time we have done this. The county jail project in 2016 received approval from LAFCO for a nearly identical outside water agreement, where that project was also in the sphere but could not be annexed because of the RUL issue that I talked about earlier. And so the way we solved that was to provide an outside service agreement in anticipation of annexation. And the way we address that, if you look at your draft resolution under attachment 4 to approve the outside service agreement, we include a condition which states that the city will be required to propose annexation of the property if and when it is ever included in the RUL. We have the exact same condition that we applied to the county jail project, and so that is something we want to keep in mind. That's our assurance that annexation will occur and that we anticipate it. So next slide, please. Already briefly touched upon the CEQA background for this project. The lead agency is the Napa Valley Unified School District. LAFCO is a responsible agency. The school district prepared, as mentioned, an initial study, mitigated negative declaration, mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and an addendum to the initial study and mitigated negative declaration, all of which have been reviewed by legal counsel and are adequate for LAFCO's purposes to make CEQA findings as part of all of these actions. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the recommended procedures and actions. And then after this slide will be a presentation from the school district. So first bullet point is to receive the school district's presentation. Then the commission will be asked to open the public hearing, take public testimony, and close the public hearing. And then the next 5 items all relate to the actions we'll be taking. There are 4 separate draft resolutions. Those are attachments 1 through 4, each of which includes making CEQA findings. And so making CEQA findings is the final bullet point on this slide. I believe that should cover everything. Happy to answer any questions after the school district's presentation. And with that, I'd like to hand over the floor, if the commission is agreeable, to Mike Pearson with the Napa Valley Unified School District.
I do have a couple procedural questions first. I know based on your slide and who's in the audience, we will have a presentation from the school district, but do I need to call on, does the city of Napa wish to address us as well as Napa San or not?
Well, I do see at least one representative, two representatives from the city of Napa. I couldn't see Vin back there. He was hiding behind Don's head.
Well, if
so-
either agency or would like to address this, do we do that during the after I open the public hearing, Gary, or do I consider it the same as the presentation from the school district?
You can make it as same as the presentation from the school district at the first part, yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So with that, yes, please, school district, if you'd like to come up and make your presentation. Any other questions from commissioners before we get going on this? Okay, great.
All right, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Chair Moeller, commissioners, and Executive Officer Freeman, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Vintage High School Farm Project. My name is Mike Pearson. I'm an assistant superintendent, and I oversee operational services and in the school district. And joining me is Kelly Jurgensen, and Kelly is the vice president of Van Pelt Construction Services. And Van Pelt Construction Services is the group of individuals or the company that we've hired to help us manage our bond project. So they're just finishing up on Measure H, which we're very fortunate to have passed in 2016, and then Measure A2, which passed down in American Canyon most recently in 2022. So I'll try to go through this briefly as quickly as I can, because Executive Officer Freeman has already done a lot of the footwork for us, which I appreciate very much for that. So if we can go to the next. Oh, and also joining me in the audience is our Superintendent, Dr. Berzano Musetti. I don't want to forget about the boss, so I got to make sure. So she's in the audience in case any questions pertaining to her too as well. All right. So let's keep going. Okay. All right, so we are talking about the Agricultural Science Innovation Center / farm. I know Executive Officer Freeman mentioned it's technology. We're still kind of working on the verbiage of this particular structure and facility that we're going to be constructing here in the very near future. But we're really looking at these ideas around innovation, technology, and centers and farms and things like that versus just the name of farm itself, which is it's been historically been known at. You can go to the next slide is our mission. And I really wanted to take a moment here just to stress to the commissioners and the members of the audience to understand that the school district really is about transforming lives by instilling and inspiring this lifelong learning in every single student. And we see this project as a great opportunity to have that ability to install those lifelong learning experiences, because this will be a hands-on experience for many of our students, since it's part of our career tech educational programs that we have within the school district. If you can go to the next slide. So building on that, why the Agricultural Science Innovation Center. Some of the key initiatives that we will be covering throughout this project, during this project, will be college and career readiness. We'll be helping kids be prepared for careers potentially in the industry, but also as well as going off to college if they so choose. It will have a responsive and engaging pedagogy. So the teaching practices that we will be using will be some of our traditional model, but also very much of hands-on opportunities will be happening, and that'll be probably more the emphasis than more the traditional pedagogy. Through these ideas, and being a former site principal, I can tell you that students really thrive socially, emotionally, and academically when they're presented with a variety of different pedagogies to receive information. We also really are taking this opportunity to educate our students about land conservation and our world-class industry. And as I said earlier, I was a former site school principal. I actually was a former principal at Vintage High School. And I can tell you right now that I could not believe that I missed that during my tenure from 2012 to 2018. I kind of missed this opportunity of recognizing what's literally in my backyard, which was this world-class industry, and how we didn't seem to think about embracing it. But the opportunities are so phenomenally great that we are just going to have to be, that we are excited about this opportunity to embrace that industry. And then the last one was to bring those real-world experiences to students and provide opportunities for them in the careers that they so choose to want to go. So an overview of the project, as Executive Officer Freeman has already shared about you. I won't go into the sphere of influence and the lines and things, but it gives you an idea of where the properties is located from a geographical area, or aerial view. One thing we wanted to point out is it does comprise a little over 12 acres, but approximately 2.5 of those acres is going to be this unused property that will be subject to affordable housing restrictions that we've talked with the city of Napa about in exchange for the outside water service agreement that we can talk more about if needed on that. So that's an overview of that. Evolution-wise, so we've been talking about this project. We've been working on this project since 2016. Again, that was back when I actually was a site principal. And at that time, essentially what we were going to try and do was replicate that currently exists on the eastern edge at the end of Sierra Avenue. But fortunately, we've had this a period of time to kind of evolve this project. And that's where we've come into this Agricultural Innovation Center that we're so excited about with this. But it shares with you that, in 2016, we started the design the process. In 2018 of August, this involved us exchanging some properties to get the new piece of property that we currently exist on. And that was finalized during that time. We then, as Executive Officer Freeman mentioned, we made a presentation to LAFCO about possibly annexing into the sewer. And then we also had received a grant through the Career Tech Educational Program. So this project is multi-funded. It's relying on the sale of the current farm property, which is due to close escrow in January of 2024. But it also requires us to have the additional awards of approximately $4.4 million, which we've received from the state to finish off this particular project. Those funds were then released in March of 2022, and we have to show that what we've spent in the deadline to complete the spending of those funds, the CTE funds, by March of 2026 on that. If you can go to the next slide. So just to make sure the commissioners are aware of this, that the school district is not subject to county or city building codes. We're actually governed by the Division of State Architects. And so this shows you that we've been approved by our stamp out from the state architects on the current project that we have out there. And we just wanted to make sure that, that everybody understood that from a building standpoint, we work in conjunction with cities and counties on things like, road work improvements and whatnot and things like that. But the building itself is governed by the Division of State Architects. So to make sure everybody's aware on that note on that. If you go on the next slide, the Agricultural Science Innovation Center Farm, well, what is it? It's going to be a combination of a couple things. So there'll be two classrooms, and there will be a lab/classroom. So one will be the ag science technology classroom and a laboratory. So if you can imagine a classroom for approximately 36 students, and then an extension of that, a laboratory area. Same thing with the culinary classroom. The culinary classroom will be a teaching laboratory area, but then also have a classroom for up to 36 students as well too. We'll have 4 barns located on the project at this point, which is chicken and feed barn, a pole barn, sheep barn, and a feed barn. And if you really want to know what those all are, I can be happy to tell you what those all exactly stand, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The 10 acre, it does sit on 10 acres. We envision seeing vegetable produce, a teaching vineyard, and grazing areas for the purposes of education around that. They'll have, as I said earlier, some really rich and hands-on learning experiences for our students, as well as developing future partnerships with local community and having engagement strategies with local community leaders, organizations, and businesses. And then it provides a new agricultural pathway for our students in high demand, livable wage job areas, supporting our local economy. And then the last thing I think I just mention is that as far as the farm program also has a really robust Future Farmers of America program associated with it. And this is really centered upon the idea of providing leadership development for our students, which is really a crucial component for students to help develop their social and emotional and sort of their lifelong experiences as well too, by embracing those activities. Okay, so a little bit more about the annexation of the farm here. So as Executive Officer Freeman mentioned, we're looking to have the annexation of the sphere of influence amendment in order to make sure this facility has the necessary utilities and also to just meet the needs of our students. So it just drills down a little bit more from an aerial, just so you can see the end of Trower Avenue. And get an idea of where the farm is going to be situated, mainly to the north of what will eventually be assumed Trower Avenue. And you can see how it's curved already. And we worked with the city of Napa when we were looking at the design of this particular facility to see if we could follow that curvature that's going to be at some point potentially developed down there. Kelly, do you have anything to add on this, or have I covered it all?
No, I would just quickly add that the parking that you
Can you
see-
speak into the mic?
Oh,
So
I'm
it's
sorry.
televised. I mean, it's going to be taped.
Yeah, thank you. Is that better? I just wanted to say that the parking that you see in this image might be slightly different. Sometimes in renderings, things change a little bit. I think there's a little more parking than what's actually planned. So sometimes a lot of parking denotes a lot of activity. And so I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, and to walk the commissioners through this, so the blue buildings represent the classrooms that we have outlined for this particular project, and then the 3 pink and the 1 white are the barns that I referenced earlier. We had to, for fire purposes, to meet certain things, we had to create this great big like horseshoe there, as you can see, as if we ever needed to bring in emergency personnel or anything like that, and to reach all the buildings. And so that's why we had to create that particular shape. And then, as Kelly mentioned, there has to be a sufficient amount of parking that will be required by the Division of State Architects as well too. All right, if you can go to the next slide. Executive Officer Freeman already has alluded to this, but as you can see where the current sphere of influence for water and for sewer already exists. So I don't think the yellow line, which is a little hard to see, that's approximately where the actual Napa Sanitation District sewer line actually goes directly through the property. And we discovered this when we were doing our civils. We went, well, that's why we initially made our first request to LAFCO, because it seemed to make sense that if we could tap into that sewer line, that will save us some considerable amount of costs from the standpoint of having to put in any sort of engineered septic system or something to that occasion. The next one had to do with the water. And to be really honest with the commissioners was, as we were going through some drought years and starting to realize, and myself being a property owner here in the Napa County, realizing how precious water is and knowing the need for fire suppression that we need to have on our facilities, it seemed to make sense to then ask for this outside service agreement for the purposes of that safety feature. And then also started to realize also from the instructional standpoint, with having a culinary classroom on there, super important that you have clean drinking water. And not to say that the well water wouldn't be clean and it couldn't be treated, but that all is at an additional cost, and we do have to be fiscally mindful as much as we possibly can. So with the water agreement, I want to be really clear with everybody, is for the use for instructional purposes and for fire suppression. It is not to water the animals. It is not for irrigation purposes. If we do anything out there at all on the farm, which we do plan to do, the well that we have out there will serve those needs. The specific needs are for this, or for the, like I said, for fire suppression and for instructional purposes on that. Okay, go to the next slide. And so building on that, our job, one of my jobs is to really think about the next 30 years. And that's, as I mentioned earlier, water is a precious commodity here in the Valley. And not knowing where we're going to be here from 30 years, I've learned in being in this side of the house now on the construction side, you typically think out about 30 years. And so our job is to really think that far out in advance. And we wanted to make sure that we set this up. I have a really keen interest to set this up so that it is a sustaining facility for the years to come. And so we're making that, one of the main reasons we're making that request is to be thinking out in the distance, that we set it up for several students and several generations, not several generations, but several years of students to participate in this. We also want to point out too that we do feel that this request is environmentally friendly. And the standpoint from that is that it's good practice, as I outlined, as I said in the executive summary, it's good practice to drain the tanks of water that would serve the need of water suppression. And it'd be really difficult for us to capture all that water and then reuse all that water as we have to drain the tanks and then go through the certain things that we have to do to make sure that the system's working. And so we just felt that would be another reason why is from environmental friendly. And then also from the sewer standpoint, it's not that we can't, it's not bad to put gray water back into the ground if we were using a septic system. But if there's a chance to tap into the Napa sanitation, I think I would prefer that over putting gray water back into the soil. Right there and then. So that's what we were thinking about with planning. So as the request was mentioned earlier, we are looking at amending the City of Napa sphere of influence. We're looking at amending the Napa Sanitation District sphere of influence. We're requesting the outside water service agreement from the City of Napa, which has already taken action on that. They took that action, I believe, on their their November meeting. And then we're annexation of the entire parcel to the Napa Sanitation District. And then the last one just has the benefits of this. First and foremost, our educational purposes, TK-12. And we do see this site and this facility as serving not just the students at Vintage High School, but serving all the 16,000 students that contain within the school district. We really see this as a cornerstone, that's something that we can build on throughout the entire district to benefit all 16,000 students. And we're already in the discussions of looking at what can it look like at every single site that would potentially have an opportunity to be able to reap the benefits of this facility, regardless of what school you go to, regardless of what grade level you're on. I mentioned already about safety and environmentally conscious, the long-term future I talked about. I think the one I haven't mentioned too much about has been the community partnerships and the employment for students. But it's so crucial for our students to be able to develop those, those really meaningful partnerships with the community, and keep them, and hopefully, if we can, to keep our students here in the Valley once they matriculate from high school, and helping them understand what types of jobs are really out there for them. And even if they choose not to go into the business, they at least have something that they can apply to something that they choose to go in down the future. But it's building those meaningful relationships with that. Cost effectiveness is something that we have to look into as well too. As you all probably know, the cost of construction continues to go up, and everywhere we can potentially save some money on construction, we look into that. And then finally, the stewards of our land conservation. This was something I never thought about as a principal at Vintage High School. And when you think of Vintage High School, I would think about this every once in a while. But the idea about land conservation and helping our students understand the precious commodity that we have here in the Napa Valley, this land that we have, the RUL land, the fact that we're not, there's not this extreme amount of growth that's happening around is just a phenomenal thing. And you don't see this happening in a lot of communities. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on this. And so we want to make sure that we also use this as an opportunity to help develop future stewards of land conservation here in the Napa Valley. And with that, I'll take some questions.
Do we have any questions, Commissioner Painter? No. With that, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate
Never know
it.
when we open the public hearing, there might be some at that time. So, City of Napa, do you want to come up and address us? No? Napa Sand? Nope. Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much. All right, thanks. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open today's public hearing. And thank you, Brendan, for laying out exactly the process. So we will do 4 separate approvals, correct?
That is correct. And something I failed to mention earlier, it's really an all or nothing, basically. The commission could theoretically approve just some, but not all of the 4 requested actions, but it really wouldn't do any good. It basically, staff recommends either deny everything or approve everything. And approval is our recommendation.
All right, so I have a question for you, see what other questions people have for staff. So what would be if approvals did go through today, what would be the process for the future annexations that would need to occur that would just be the RUL piece, is that correct?
Correct. So if and when the city's RUL is revised, which would require a vote of the people to approve that, if this entire parcel is included in the new RUL, then there is a condition in our draft resolution for the outside service agreement that requires the city to propose annexation of the entire parcel within 1 year of its inclusion in the RUL.
The entire parcel, including that piece?
That's correct.
Okay, so then that wouldn't have any change to the water or the sewer that we're approving now?
I'm not sure I understand. No, it would not. What do you mean? It would not.
None of that would change?
Correct.
Because since it was going to be one whole piece at that time for annexation into the city, then we're doing the water and the sewer now, so that would already be in place.
That's correct, yes.
Because I was wondering that one little line where the piece is outside in the RUL, that water and sewer is going into the whole parcel we're talking about today.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make that double. Okay, so Commissioner Painter.
Thank you. I don't really have questions as much as comments. And I know we have staff here and they can certainly come up and supplement anything that I might say. But as Mr. Pearson mentioned, Napa City Council did have a presentation on this topic on November 7th. And I just want the commissioners to know that there was unanimous support for this project. So, and there are components outside of what LAFCO is looking at that Mike also touched on a little bit, which includes the extension of Trower Avenue, and also the 2.5 acres as dedicated, restricted to affordable housing was a very important effort that took a lot of coordination. So I really thank the district and our city staff for doing that. One piece that's not really a part of this process, but just to make you aware of, as this moves forward with the outside water service agreement, the city will have a very robust terms of agreement. And those terms of agreement, to kind of look at what you were talking about, are specifically for the uses that are outlined for this farm center.
Okay.
So if, and I don't have my crystal ball totally handy, but what may or may not happen in terms of RUL extension and what the future might bring 20 years, 30 years, 50 years from now, that agreement would have to be completely amended. So the water service is for this project and very specifically targeted to the uses that Mike already outlined. I don't have any other questions. I just, maybe since I'm talking, I'll just say the staff report I think was very thorough. There's a lot to go through, but you had 5 factors that we really need to consider in moving this forward. And I've read through all of the staff findings and summaries, and I am in support of how it's been prepared. So thank you. And if you have any questions, either I can answer it or we do have staff here, but I just wanted you to be aware of the city's coordination, particularly on the terms of that water agreement.
So any additional questions? Because we might, especially if you want me to bring back anybody up. If not, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And did we have any, before I do that, any just public who would like to speak outside of the applicants and the presenters? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back for our deliberation and discussion. So who would like to say something? Commissioner Ramos, would you like to say something? Oh, okay. Well, Commissioner Cottrell.
Yeah, I'm in support of this project. I know that sounds like we want to do it in a series of 4 motions. That's how you'd like it. But I just wanted to point out, sometimes you hear about a great project with great goals, and yet, as you were saying, Chair, this is a very rigorous process that we have to go through here at LAFCO. So it's good to see, thanks to the thorough staff report, and I appreciate everyone at the NVUSD for taking the time to meet with me to help me understand the background on all of it too. In my view, we meet what we need to meet for LAFCO's concerns as well. So do we want to, I'm happy to make a motion.
I think, well, let's get through some other comments. Nobody wants to go next. I'm certainly going to go. So we've got kind of our LAFCO hats on here, and this is a rigorous process. There's things, annexations don't happen, water and sewer just don't go anywhere. We are obligated by state law to kind of make those decisions. So I think there's a lot of support up here. I just wanted to say that I was a member of 4F. I was a member of 4-H and a future farmer. I'm a career scientist now. So I think any science and any technology that we can really give to our kids today. I entered the science fair in the 4th grade, and I decided I was going to be a scientist. So you can never start too soon to get future farmers and scientists for tomorrow. So I applaud the concept, which is outside of the state law we have to follow. But I just wanted to make those comments. So, so with that, I will entertain a motion. So, who would like to go first? Do you have additional comments?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
please, go ahead.
Echoing the chair's remarks, I would just like to say, when it comes to the pause that NVUSD took, whether willingly or just situationally, I think that the result that has yielded has been positive, as it is far more reflective of what we do here and our sustainable path forward. We simply can't believe that we're going to continue to have that draw of workforce if we're not investing in the desire for people to be connected to agriculture. And with my president of Napa County 4-H heart on my sleeve, many of these FFA children will yield the benefits of this, and for that I am incredibly happy that there is a landing place for this program that is vital to our continued sustainability as an agricultural community. I think it bears noting that these actually are, while they're very geeky and nerdy 4-step processes and lots of maps and lines, that this is actually an extraordinary move. So I don't want it to be lost upon any of us that, hey, yay, you get water and you get to flush your toilets. This is a big move. It is a big ask, and it comes with a lot of thoughtfulness to it. So I don't want to downplay the fact that this is actually happening, but I am supportive of the thoughtfulness that has gone into it, and what I hope will truly be an innovative result, investing in the future of our children.
Okay, so with that, Commissioner
Can I
Cottrell.
ask one procedural question? And I just echo everything you've said. Like the chair, I've got 2 degrees in the sciences and a husband in the wine business. So, this is really, it is a very monumental moment. It really is. Procedurally, we're doing things that are different, but I'll just jump to my question, which is, do you really need 4 motions, or can we do it in one step?
So if there is unanimity amongst you on those with making the motion, then yes, you can do it in a single vote.
Okay, well, I'll leave it to Commissioner Cottrell to decide which way to.
Well, what I'll do is just ask if there's anybody who's expecting to not approve any of the resolutions. Seeing nothing, then I think that we'll have Commissioner Cottrell make a joint approval for the 4 resolutions.
Happy to do that. Would you like me to read the details?
For the resolution numbers, if you could just mention them and what they are broadly, they were up there, and that's the staff recommendation. So I think that's enough.
Okay, great. So I'm going to make a motion. Well, I'm just going to cover the things so we get it right. So I'm going to move that to adopt the resolution of LAFCO's Sphere of Influence Amendment involving the City of Napa. That's attachment 1. And the Sphere of Influence Amendment involving the Napa Sanitation District. That's attachment 2. And that, let's see, the annexation to Napa Sanitation District. That's attachment 3. And finally, the outside service agreement. That's attachment 4.
Second.
I have a question on the document.
Okay, can you speak into your mic so we can have that for the recording?
I thought is it on?
Yes.
Okay. So each one of these 4 also indicates making CEQA findings. So the question is, do we need to include that wording?
Make sure my microphone's on.
Yeah.
That's included in your agenda title, is included within the resolution. So I think that's sufficient.
Okay. So with that, I'll call the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We don't have any opposed or abstain. I know that because we already talked about that. So congratulations and good luck with this project. You can please take back to everybody at the school how excited we are that you're moving ahead with your project.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So with that, let's now move on. We've got 4 action items today. The first one is that we are going to receive a financial audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. And Tracy.
Good afternoon. Tracy Schulze, Auditor Controller. Nice to see all of you again. This is my annual presentation of your financial audit, and this is the one closing June 30th, 2023. Hopefully you all had a chance to look at all of it, and I'm here to answer any questions. I'm just going to do a pretty high overview, but I do feel it's necessary to walk through it. So I believe the audit actually starts close to page 200 in your agenda packet. And the first item that I will bring to is page number 1 of the independent auditor's report, which is on page 202, if you want to get there. Hopefully I got the page numbers right.
We have different numbers.
Yeah.
I went to the agenda item that's sent. Okay. Then never mind. Wherever it is.
125.
125. Thank you. Okay. All right. So that is the letter from the independent auditor, and that is stating in the second paragraph there. It says, in our opinion, the basic financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities of the commission. So what that is saying is that you have a clean, unmodified opinion audit, which is what you want to see, which is great. I'm going to skip ahead a couple pages where it starts the management discussion analysis. It's probably about 2 or 3 pages into it. This is a comparison of 2 years of activity and kind of just gives you a really high level of what's changed over the year. Not much. If you skip 2 pages later, I made one of these page numbers. So where it says it's page 6 of the audit report. So if you can see that at the bottom, it's condensed statement of activities for fiscal years, just a little table that shows 2023 versus 2022. This shows you your revenues and expenses for the 2 years, and it shows that, really the only thing that's very variable is your intergovernmental revenues, which increased $100,000 over the 2 years. And then on the next page, There's capital assets, and I point this out because there's two presentations in this audit. One is called governmental activities and one is called the governmental fund. It's all the exact same, except because of our wonderful accounting rules for governments, we have to include certain things that are long-term debt or lease payments that you wouldn't normally look at when you're just looking at that fund accounting. And so we had to implement this in last year, and that was our first year where we had the leased assets on our books. So the next couple pages are financial statements, and there's one called statement of net position and then statement of activities. Those include those lease assets. If you skip to the next page where it says balance sheet, that is what you're normally used to seeing because it doesn't include those leased assets. So this on the balance sheet, which is page 10 of the audit report, you see the assets. You have cash of $400,000. Deposit with others is one of your down payment for your rent, your first payment. That's put in deposit. And then you just have a little bit of liabilities there, so you're in really good fiscal position. You can see your fund balance is broken up into the two pieces. That $19,000 is back a long time ago when we upgraded the file system. We depreciated that over a few years and put money aside for when we need to update or replace that system. This way we didn't have to charge out again for it. So that's just sitting in as assignment that your commission had dedicated those money to. And then the rest is unassigned. I'm going to skip the next couple pages. You see there on page 12 of the report, you can see your revenues broken down and your expenditures broken down in very high level categories. Again, nothing outstanding or change from prior years. Following that is the notes to the financial statements, which is more of the story behind the numbers and how we come up with these numbers. You can see our capital assets. You can see our long-term liabilities. And then on page 20 of the report is budget to actual worksheet. So you can see how we budgeted versus what actually came in and how close we are to what we projected for the year. And then finally, the last report in the audit is a report on internal controls, which starts on page 22 of the report. And that is, again, the auditors look at our internal controls and they did not find anything that they thought was material affecting the internal controls. So it's a very clean, good audit. I can answer any questions you have on the numbers. There are a couple other attachments. The second attachment is a letter from the auditors that's a required communication. Basically, they have to tell you if they came in, if they had any problems getting the information. And of course, there was no problems getting the information because we have wonderful staff and Brendan and his team getting all this information for us every year. And then the last attachment is the chart of the fund balance. If there's any questions on there, you can see, if I could find mine, you can see that the fund balance is actually increasing based on this last year because of that extra additional revenues that came in by the $100,000. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Tracy? Wow, I'm getting away easy, but great report. So thank you very much.
And I have some hard copies if you want to take them home for your coffee table. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sure you can probably leave them with staff in
Yes, I
case
will.
they would like to
Yes.
have them instead of just
Yeah.
throwing them away if
Absolutely.
you're interested. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Anybody from the public would like to make any comment? See no public comment. We'll bring it back. So you're looking just for a motion to receive and file the audit report?
Yes.
Okay. Could I get a motion to receive and file?
We'll make a motion to receive and file the audit report as
Second.
presented.
Okay. Painter made the motion, second by Cottrell. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstain? That passes unanimously. Thank you
Thank you.
very much for your help. Our next action item is proposed Sierra Avenue Villa Lane annexation to Napa Sand and CEQA findings.
And I'm going to have your Assistant Executive Officer, Dawn Middleman Longoria, handle this item. Are you ready, Dawn?
Yes, I am. So this is another piece of the Vintage Farm project in a way. I mean, this was a parcel owned by the school district, and it is going to be developed, and there will be 53 single-family homes and 13 accessory dwelling units available. And in your report, you have a vicinity map and an aerial map that gives a clear idea of what's going on here. And the landowner, as I say, in this situation is the school district. And then with regard to the CEQA document on this, this is, you'll see a letter from the city's project environmental project manager there on this particular project, and the determination was made that the city had just very recently updated its general plan, and in that they had, of course, on an extensive environmental review. And this particular project is now exempt from CEQA because it was determined that, in fact, all of the details of the project had been analyzed in the final environmental impact report for the general plan. So it did not require additional CEQA work on this. And it's called, the title on it is the Vintage Farm Residential Subdivision. And so the matter before you and the commission staff is recommending approval of annexing this to Napa Sanitation District. The property is already within the city of Napa, and it's within Napa's urban limit line as well as its sphere of influence. And it's also within the sphere of influence of the sanitary district. So staff is recommending approval of this, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. And I know that Commissioner Painter has been through all of the details of this extensively. And in fact, the resolution itself was 29 pages, the resolution which included all of the details of the tentative map and so forth. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
But I do have one. So the school district still owns the property, right?
Correct.
So I guess the next question probably goes to Beth. So, but it hasn't been, so it's still zoned school because they're still the owner, right?
No.
So what is it zoned? Did you change it? Did the city of Napa change the zoning?
The general plan includes provisions to allow for a rezoning for residential use for school zone properties. And in fact, that's why the district did wait, as I think Commissioner Ramos said, to kind of be patient through this process. They waited until the general plan was updated so that it would move forward with the appropriate general plan support and zoning support. So yeah, it's compliant with the zoning.
That's all done. Okay, that was my only question.
Thank you.
Any other questions from
And
commissioners?
yeah, I mean, I just went through, and not to be nitpicky on the package, but now I'm not seeing this item in the package. Is anybody else having that trouble? Using the old
I've got
package. Okay.
hard
Well, I
copies.
read through the old package. And with the resolution here, I don't have any additional questions, but I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions. Yes, the district, this sale will go through, as I think Mike mentioned, in January, once this is completed. And again, the subdivision received unanimous approval, went through a very comprehensive process, both at our planning commission and city council. But
Okay.
happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions before I ask for public comment? Seeing none, we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for a possible motion on adopting the resolution that is attached. Or any final other decisions, conversation?
I would love to go ahead and make a motion to follow staff's recommendation for the annexation of the Sierra Avila Lane property to the NEP Sanitation District and the associated CEQA findings.
I'll second if nobody else would like to. So it was Commissioner Painter and I seconded it. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, there's no nays or abstentions. That passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for that. Now let's move on to our fourth action item today. We are going to, third, sorry. We're going to consider options to amend the agreement for the provision of support services. And Dawn, are you going to be taking this one too? Thanks.
Yes, I am. So what we're requesting here is that the commission provide formal direction to staff with respect to pursuing amendments to the agreement. And this is the support services agreement with the county. And then also to please provide direction to the ad hoc subcommittee that was appointed. And I know the commission has heard information on this in the past, but it gets kind of obvious that a contract from 2003 might need to get updated. It's the only updates that have occurred are and there are numerous attachments from information technology services updating their costs and their charges, but that's really all that's been done. And I know that as you're well aware, at the strategic planning session that the commission did emphasize independence from the county as one of the goals with regard to that planning. And certainly it's important to understand that independence from the county doesn't mean that we're not cooperative and working with the county on a regular basis. It just means that actually I go back to CKH, which required at one point a law was passed requiring LAFCOs to be independent. And that came about as a result of it was grand juries and various organizations and communities that felt that since LAFCO is an organization that is, first of all, independent, and it's meant to be that way because it has this wonderful mix of city, county, and in some areas, special districts, and then public members. So that bringing together of all those different organizations, it was never meant to have one organization in particular be, in charge of things. And if staff is, quite frankly, if staff's bread is buttered in one place, then they tend to give recommendations that favor where they're getting their pay from. So that's where legal counsel was the first thing that came up with regard to LAFCO established separate legal counsel. Now, in basically the issue that we've run into of late has been that this LAFCO is growing and becoming very well known across the state. It's becoming very active, very proactive. And with that, it was recognized that additional staff would be needed to make those actions and to take on all of that work. So the commission has, in fact, approved both the budget and additional staff individuals. But unfortunately, those that could not be carried on through the county. It came into odds with some of their particular policies. And so it took over a year to, even though the contract at this time notes that staff provided needs to be such that it's staff that the commission has approved and approved the budget for. And so although that's in the contract, it's not something that county staff is accustomed to working with. And it's very understandable because the county is a huge organization. They need to have very specific accounting. They need to have very specific rules for their employees. And it really needs to apply to a very large number of individuals. So for us to come in and be a kind of a round peg in a square hole is hard to deal with. And the problem that we ran into was that as we would train any particular staff on our odd case, then turnover would occur and then we'd have to start all over again. So one possible, though this is sort of this is a very temporary action, would be for LAFCO staff to be placed as a separate bargaining unit, and that would allow for some independence there. I do call it a temporary staff because at the same time we continued to study the arrangements that occurs for other staff with other, not only independent agencies, but also with other LAFCOs. And other LAFCOs have situations where they actually adopt their own personnel rules. They have their own personal handbook, and their benefits are available through state organizations, and then also the insurance coverage is also available through state organizations. Bookkeeping and auditing functions are taken on by recognized professional firms. And another matter that we've run into is just the inability to legitimate costs for conferences and things like that have to be placed on our own credit cards, and it can take a little bit of time to get reimbursed on those. So those are some of the matters that we need to really look at. And certainly there are functions that we are receiving from the county that work extremely well. IT service is great. They're wonderful. They're so patient. Anyway, they're wonderful to work with. So it is our request that we be given some direction with regard to moving forward on this, and then some direction for the ad hoc committee as well. Thank you.
So I'm going to start with the ad hoc committee, that maybe we kind of consider that first. Attorney Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a little more detail
Okay.
on why staff's asking for direction today. And perhaps the ad hoc committee needs to meet and discuss this, and that would be fine too. Staff's happy to help with that process. You have an agreement in place since 2003 with the county. The basic question is, we stay with the current agreement and amend it to the extent we can with the county and fix some of the issues if we can find agreement on what those issues are, and then come to an amendment that would then be approved by the Board of Supervisors and then by this commission, and continue the same basic framework where your employees are employees of the county functioning under county policies and procedures, where the county holds your funds and you operate under those rules as they exist. So that's the current option. That's what you're currently doing. We could enter into those negotiations and attempt to address as many of the issues as we can. The other option is an so-called independent LAFCO, and you've heard that phrase, but I want to go into a little bit of detail on what that actually entails. That would really be the absence of an agreement with the county, or perhaps a very scaled down agreement with the county. You might want to keep some functions with them in an independent LAFCO arrangement, like managing your funds, for example, maybe the audit function, things like this. But the employees would become employees of LAFCO instead of employees of the county. And you're essentially going through the process that any other new agency that you might approve here at LAFCO would go through. So you would need policies of your own, all the policies required under state law, personnel rules. You would need employment agreements or some kind of employment document that governs the relationship between the employees and the commission. You'd need a contract with PERS so that you can provide PERS benefits. All of those things would be a months-long process because it takes time to draft all that, negotiate all that, and then to unwind what you currently have with the county, which even if you started now would take some time to do it. Staff's happy to take it either direction, and we would go either way. It's just sort of a fork in the road, and so that's why we need input from you all.
All right, thank you with that. So let's sort through the ad hoc, who's going to be very, very busy on this first, because I know we had a discussion a while ago, and now there's some thought that it'd be advantageous to have county supervisors be on our ad hoc, because we're really working not only with LAFCO but the county on this. So is that something that the commission would entertain? And yes, Brendan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to point out that there is another item after this, item 7D, which involves subcommittee appointments. And one of the items in that separate action item relates to considering the membership of this ad hoc that we're talking about now to review this agreement with the county. So I'll defer to legal counsel with respect to if we have the ability to take that up as part of this discussion, or if we need to wait.
Or if we can hybridize it. I just wanted to make sure we kind of knew what we were going to do, so we really had our ad hoc paying attention to where we're going to go with this agenda item. So that was only my intent. So please tell us how we should handle that.
Yeah, I think you can do both, as long as you take public comment on both items before making any appointments and consider them. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Am I not remembering correctly? Didn't we establish the ad hoc committee?
Yeah, and we did. And
Commissioner
it was
Ramos and Leary?
right. But
So-
now we're reconsidering that with.
But my question is, so have you met? Do you have any feedback for us right now?
We have not met.
You have not met. Okay. So,
We
but
have
we do
not met.
have that committee formed, and we had that discussion about
Right.
membership. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm not.
No, and we did. And that's why
Okay,
I
thank
kind of mentioned that. And then I said, but now I think that there's been some additional thought about, because we will be negotiating with the county, that it really might make more sense to have county supervisors who will hopefully not have to get up to speed as much as a non-county elected on this whole process. So that's why it's kind of being reopened for discussion today. So just if any thoughts on that?
I will say, I think either approach works. Honestly, we're doing this in our LAFCO capacities. So I think either approach works. I guess I'm a little more concerned about the idea of switching a committee that hasn't even met. And, I also consider the fact that 3 of us, yes, we're supervised, but we're all new to LAFCO, whereas Commissioner Leary has been here a while. So, I think either one works. I'm not opposed to it. I think that there are some very real constraints at the county of what we are able to do. I also just want to be cautious in my former life, having practiced labor and employment law, of this body talking about having our employees form a bargaining unit is incredibly off limits. So, we can't be advocating to say, hey, employees, go form a union, that we in fact would then receive a petition for approval. We just, that makes me super nervous. That short-term option, I don't even want to talk about.
So I will answer the question without talking about it.
Thank you.
So that's not what we're suggesting. So I'll provide a little more detail on that. Where that comment came from is that your current folks here at LAFCO are part of a current bargaining unit, and one of the constraints are the rules that apply to that. And so one question and things that we've been discussing is, what is, if you were to do option one, which is stay with the county, what rules exist, and how could you possibly modify them or have different rules apply?
We cannot. As the body that is employers, we cannot. We can't. I'm have very strong opinions about this. If our employees choose to peel off from the general unit of SEIU 1021, that is their petition for us to then consider. Period. But we taking a role on what that would look like, absolutely not. I will say I will abstain and walk out of the room for that discussion. I cannot be a part of any discussions regarding a bargaining unit and how this affects our employees. That is a conversation for any prospective petitioners to then have with their own general unit with SEIU 1021, and I will not get involved in labor discussions. When it comes to the contract for services with the county, that absolutely is fair game, but it cannot be in relation to represented employees. It has to be in relation to the services provided by the county, one of which is HR services. So I want to be very cautious in what we can and cannot talk about. I think that we are in a very, I try very, very hard each and every day to not wear my lawyer hat at work. And this item is making it very difficult for me to do that. I think that because we are dealing with, in some respects, employee compensation, how that relates to HR, we are far better off with a request for closed session for us to be able to talk about this as it relates to decisions that have already been made by this commission for employee compensation, and then to look at what the contract for services says and the MOU says in relation to that compensation. But I certainly am not going to participate in any discussions regarding a change in bargaining unit. That just is, that's not my hat that I wear.
Yep, no, understood. And I don't believe that question would ever come to this commission. Agreed.
I have some comments.
I'd like to go to Commissioner Leary first because
Because it's on the subcommittee.
you are currently on the ad hoc that we appointed that has not yet met. So for this discussion, you have some thoughts you want to share?
At this point, I'm just interested in doing the best for the commission. And if the thought is that two Board of Supervisor members who are on the commission can negotiate or work that out, I can support that. I want to see what's best for the commission. Commissioner Ramos wasn't here during this last discussion, so she added a great deal to it. So I'm not opposed to stepping down from the commission. Maybe that might be not from the commission, from
the committee.
From the committee.
Watch
Right.
yourself.
from the ad hoc committee. Maybe that would be simpler if I step down from the ad hoc committee. Then we can appoint another member.
Yeah, and the only reason that some of this actually kind of came up, this topic has been going on for years. This is not something new. These challenges we've been discussing for quite a while, and before we had even a formal committee before, that's really kind of what we found is that all of a sudden, when we had two supervisors, things just moved quicker. And, there was just more, acknowledgement on both sides about a mutual understanding and, being positive about the county, because there's certainly some services that I think that we're going to want to really maintain. And it went from months of just a lot of difficulty getting a meeting to all of a sudden, poof. We
Yeah.
had 2 county commissioners and
Yeah.
it happened overnight almost.
Yeah.
So that's
I-
really where the nemesis
Yeah.
is.
Our council presented 2 options or 2 ways of going about this. And I think as a commission, and Commissioner Ramos mentioned maybe a closed session on this. I think we haven't decided which one of those we want to do. We go into negotiations. What are we negotiating for? Are we negotiating to leave? Are we negotiating to revise or the contract we have with the county? But I think before we even start that, we need to decide as a commission where we're going. Which one of those do we want to do? And it seems like there are benefits, but there are also conditions that are going to be very difficult and time-consuming for the commission. So I think we need to make that kind of decision by, a closed session, work session, or something, because I think we came to this point, like you said, out of frustration. And so maybe it's not, now it's the time to step back a little bit and see where we really want to go with this, and then make our plan and do it and execute it.
So I'll go back to our attorney because it's kind of come up with 2 commissioners right now. So can you advise us on the applicability of the subject matter on this item and relevance for going into closed, or justification for going into closed session?
Yeah, so as you know, there's only a few bases for going into closed session. There isn't the traditional labor negotiations because you're not, the bargaining units with the county, not with the commission under your agreement, the way that you have it currently set up, which might be one basis to go in and talk about some of these things, not your employees. So we can look at some basis for closed session and go and think about the different ways that you might be able to do that if that's the direction, and then bring this back at the next meeting. Be happy to do that.
Okay, so we have another option. So let's go back to the item about the ad hoc. Is that something that we want to continue discussing here, or do we want to table it for more questions?
Well, you go ahead, Amy,
Okay.
because I think each of us have some comments.
Yeah,
Or-
yeah.
I'll call on everybody. Don't worry.
Okay, so first of all, thanks, Dawn, for the staff report. Appreciate that and framing of it. This is great information. And Commissioner Ramos, based on what you've said, I definitely would like to see you sitting on the ad hoc. I think it's a good question about. Well, let me take one step back first, because I think we have this support services agreement that is 20 years old, and we need to figure out what the next thing to do is. And we could talk about it as the group, or more effectively, designate an ad hoc. So I'm in favor of some kind of ad hoc to get to the very set of questions we're talking about. And then I'd love to see that ad hoc come back. If we can do it in some kind of closed session, I think Ken's got a great point that there's advantages to doing that. But I hear what you're saying, Gary, that the bases for calling a closed session are going to be pretty minimal. And then, so I'm in favor of some kind of ad hoc. And I think the question about having 2 supervisors on it, I understand what you're saying, that we get perhaps, a stronger county presence, which I actually think has its pros and cons as well. So I think given that we have a standing ad hoc right now, one thought I have is, well, let's let the 2 of you have a first meeting, do a review and come up with some initial thoughts. And I think from there you could see, you could give us a recommendation. Hey, we can work through this as the 2 of us, or we'd get some benefit from having another supervisor seat. So I think that's kind of where I stand as I look at what our options are. And I think, as Gary laid out, we have 2 very different roads that we need to decide how to go down. And I think for me, this is helpful because I don't think I had this context when we were looking at sort of salary conversations before about the constraints we have from the county. And if those are out there, what are our options? So those are my thoughts, and happy to hear other folks.
And I just want to make quick comments so it's in my head. I also agree that I'd be fine with that because I have a sense of urgency just because I've been going through this so long and I really want something to happen next. So if, the ad hoc could meet very soon, then it would also give time for our legal team to advise us on, what's really going to, and I would assume that that first ad hoc would just be with staff and the 2 members that we have right now. And, but so therefore something could be moving forward and I'd like for that to happen soon before the end of the year. So, and, then we can get legal advice again, because if we do have all these discussions in closed session, we're not going to meet again until February. And I just don't think I can stand another 2-month wait. So there you go. Commissioner Painter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for articulating that notion. When I read bargaining unit, I had to reread it 3 times because I was kind of shocked as that is a short-term option. Maybe I was making some assumptions, perhaps incorrectly, about what that meant. But I think, so you articulated that really well, and I just want to acknowledge that. This is a 20-year-old agreement, and I think obviously we need to move forward knowing what CKH brings in terms of being that independent agency. We have resources at the state level in terms of, Cal LAFCO. We have resources from other districts to look at. So my feeling is going forward with a policy and handbook and PERS and everything that you laid out started to make me kind of sink in my chair. It's a lot of work. It may be the right direction, but we have to take incremental steps towards where we're going. So I think Commissioner Cottrell really laid it out very well. I feel that it actually adds a lot of strength to this subcommittee to have the history that Commissioner Leary brings from serving on this commission for so long, as well as a county representative who is so well versed in labor, be our representatives. We don't have all the answers right now, so we need to keep doing our homework. I think, we'll keep doing that. So a third leg to this stool might be just continuing to try to find those resources of what other LAFCOs are doing, so that we're not sort of generically talking about start a bargaining unit or write a policy handbook, that we know what it means, how much work's involved, what is the problem we're trying to solve. And I think the right next step is to retain our existing subcommittee, have that meeting as quickly as possible. I don't know, end of the year, we're already into December, but if that can happen, terrific. And maybe approach it from that angle rather than jumping right into a closed session, because I don't think we're talking about those pieces right now. We're really talking about trying to understand, again, the problems we're trying to solve and what's the right vehicle moving forward. So I think the other commissioners have also laid it out very well, and I would support staying with our existing ad hoc committee.
Commissioner Ramos.
So I'll go ahead and add, I think just to make this more productive, I think it'd be great if the ad hoc committee can meet with, we have a LAFCO staff member. I can make sure we have, I guess I would call out our assistant CEO to be in the room and have it be a kind of more productive discussion of what our limitations are. I mean, if we can talk and say what we want, and really understanding what those county limitations are, I think is critical, so we can try and make that more productive and moving forward.
Commissioner Gallagher.
I just want to make a quick comment. Having worked for First Five for several years, we had we're an independent organization that had a contract with the county. So if there's anything I can add, if you have any questions or anything, it is a difficult relationship at times. And I think to be truly independent, you need to have an agreement that you may use some county services, but not a lot. First Five employees are not employees in the county. That's a huge difference. I think so long as you have people that are employees of the county, there is only so much independence that organization will have. So I think sort of at a higher level, do we want to truly be an independent LAFCO? And if so, we should be looking at independent LAFCOs and coming up with maybe a game plan for how we get there, because remaining employees of the county, that's really one of the main issues of an independent versus county organization. So just wanted to comment.
No, I think that's a very good point. So the staff want more direction from us because I know, I think those are excellent comments, and I totally agree. I mean, when I read this, I didn't want option short term or the long term. I was just going to like, that is certainly my opinion right now. Throw that out and really think through everything, and being more independent, not 100% independent, is really where I would kind of like to go. And I think that there are some complicating issues, especially with pensions and some long-term people. I know you could probably go get the PERS, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not willing to wait that long, and I think you never really know until you go do it, and then it's like, uh-oh, what did I just do? Also, medical insurance. I mean, getting into some other pool versus a very large pool, that needs a lot of consideration, I think. So things like that, with what Joelle just said, about being employees or not, is really going to take some time. You might have some other LAFCOs saying that they've done this and that, but once you get down into the weeds, it's a whole different story than what someone's going to put out on a lister someplace or tell you in a phone call. It's just the devil's always in the details with that stuff. So I think we made a big step because now we do have our own independent legal counsel. We are executive, and all of our staff are, not assigned by the county, which is also very big steps. But we certainly know there are some major challenges, and those are what we really need to really get fixed. And there are some other minor challenges. So that's what I would say if you meet, just kind of really outline what's below the line and what's above the line, and then just figure out how long it's really going to take to figure that out, and don't cut that time short. Even though I am pushing, because if I'm not here pushing, it's going to be another 2 years, and I have to keep, singing the same song. So, does staff have enough direction, or are there any other comments from the commission? So staff, yes.
If I
Gary.
could just ask, was there consensus on a future closed session to the extent it's allowed?
We're going to, the ad hoc, current ad hoc is going to meet immediately as soon as possible. And can we assign an alternate ad hoc in case one of them can't come, the other one can step in, just so we can have this sense of urgency that I really, really want?
Elia, do you have a comment? Commissioner Ramos?
That just makes me nervous because we might end up in a Brown Act issue with a flip in and flip out.
Yes.
So I think that it is, I think we work diligently to try and make this happen, but I'm incredibly nervous with an alternate to an ad hoc because it looks like a Brown Act disaster.
Okay. So Brown Act, even though with alternates, it's the first commission I'm on with alternates, and when they count and when they don't count. And
yeah, I think the concern is over perception, which is if you have a small commission like this and you have an alternate who's talking, and how can you control that if it's a quorum of you all that's also on the committee? But you're right. So you all have alternates, of course, and
so we can't, for Brown Act reasons, we cannot have an alternate to the ad hoc. Is that correct?
I think the concern raised by Commissioner Ramos is how would you control that and the perception that would give. So
okay, then perception counts for a lot. So I get that. Okay, all right. So I guess everyone, with my urgency, is staff get something kind of going, and as part of that, I think the first decisions really needs to be about maybe you need to pull Gary in so he can hear what you're talking about, whether we need to go into closed session, and then report back
Okay.
I guess we're not going to hear anything back until February. So,
Chair, I think, Gary, your question to us was if we can find a basis for a closed session, is there support for that? And from my perspective, I would say yes, whatever the ad hoc comes up with. And that way we just kind of let you have that direction before ahead of time, I guess.
Great, thank you.
okay. With that, I'm going to go to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item? No, I think we bored you to death out there. So anyway, bringing it back. We don't need to make. We're going to move on to the subcommittee appointments. All right, next. Dawn, this is you.
I'll take on item 7D.
Brent, okay.
And so this item involves simply making appointments to various subcommittees. So we each year in December, typically, it's always the last meeting of the year, we establish an ad hoc subcommittee to review the annual budget, to prepare a budget and present that to the full commission. So that's one of the subcommittees that we are looking for 2 appointees. Another subcommittee, also ad hoc, is the legislative subcommittee. That committee was previously a standing committee until this year. If you recall, we made a change to the policy to transition that committee to ad hoc, which provides a great deal more flexibility and less strain on staff for noticing purposes and so on. So that's another committee with 2 appointed commissioners. And of course, alternate commissioners can be appointed just the same as regular commissioners. And then in the staff report, we describe the SSA committee, but we just had that discussion during the last item. If the commission has a change of heart and wants to switch that now, this is the opportunity. But that committee consists of Commissioners Leary and Ramos, and it sounds like there will not be a change to that one. So with that, I'll hand this back to the commission for subcommittee appointments.
All right. Thanks for that. I will be happy to continue to serve on the budget committee. The budget, it says budget policy, but it's actually the budget committee, right? We establish the budget every year.
I'm sorry, there's a budget policy.
Right.
which
Oh,
is
the budget
attached.
policies. Oh, I circled the wrong thing. So the budget committee. So with that, who else has some interest in serving on one of these?
Well, I'd like to remain on the committee after the financial report we had today. I think we did a great job.
The budget, the budget committee. Okay, so we have 2 volunteers for that. If
Yeah.
you want to volunteer for, and just before we get into the legislative, just to remind everybody, we spent a lot of time on this at LAFCO. We have a very robust ledge committee, and I can tell you anything that looks, walks, or even smells like is related to LAFCO or local control goes on our agenda. We have a lot of different ways to send out letters and all sorts of stuff. So definitely look at all of our minutes because you can save yourself a lot of time. Commissioner Painter.
I'm currently serving on the legislative committee, and I would like to continue unless somebody else wants to do that.
I love volunteers, so anybody who would like to volunteer, please raise your hand.
So I just wanted to ask, so I think Gary said, or Brendan said that we can have alternates on the budget
Well, are
committee.
you?
Excuse me, the ledge committee.
Okay, so I was going to go to them in a minute.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
So
too.
you're not interested in being on the ledge committee? You're not throwing your hat in the ring?
Not at this point.
Okay, so we have 1 hat in the ring. Is there anybody else who would like to throw their hat in the ring? You can do it for the budget committee or the ledge committee.
I was going to volunteer Supervisor Cottrell because she has experience in this category. Might be a nice crossover.
Come on, volunteers. Okay.
I'm happy to serve if
you're getting drafted. Okay,
yeah,
we'll take
yeah.
drafts.
I'll
if
take
nobody's
draft
volunteering.
voluntold. Yeah.
Right now we have the vote on. We have before we take a vote, any public like to volunteer? You could maybe volunteer. We could recruit you sometime. Anyway, seeing no public comment, I will bring it back. So we have a proposal for Moeller and Leary on budget and Cottrell and Painter on legislative. Can we take that as one item? So I'll make a motion that we approve the slate. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can we have a motion and a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, done. And we've already talked about the other one. So we are now moving on to item 8, correct? Staff, everybody's fine? Commissioner comments or requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, we will move on to the favorite part I've been looking forward to all day. Recognition from our LAFCO 2023 annual conference summary, including a celebration. So anyway,
Yes,
we'll come back later and adjourn. If we have anybody in the audience who would like to help us celebrate, please stay.
Yes, well, it was a very exciting conference all the way around for Napa LAFCO. We sort of took home all the prizes, I think, practically. So we had, first to start off in the coastal region, I am Deputy Executive Officer for the coastal region, and we had our Chair Moeller and Commissioner Leary were both elected to be on the board representing coastal region. And I must say that's not all that easy because sometimes there's, it took cupcakes. That was what won everybody over. That and Commissioner Leary's going around and speaking to everyone. That was very helpful. So anyway, because sometimes there's a thought that goes through the LAFCO, the Cal-LAFCO group of, well, there can't be so many from one agency, but golly, we're just that involved. So what can I say? So we had Commissioner Leary and Commissioner Moeller now on the board of directors. And then I received a Lifetime Achievement Award. And that, first of all, I really want to express appreciation to the commission because that never would have happened if you had not nominated me for that possible award. So I very, very much appreciate that. And it was quite an honor because it's not given every year. It's the kind of thing that's it's a bit unusual to have that. And so I really did appreciate receiving that award. And then our wonderful legal counsel also received an award as associate member for Cal-LAFCO. So there again, we're just hitting it all out of the park on this one. And then the next, this is a very big award for Cal-LAFCO, and that is the Mike Gotch Excellence in Public Service and Protection of Agricultural Land. That is really a huge award, and we won that. And we won that for the Green Island project. This commission stood strong in spite of a lot of push the other way. We do recognize former commissioners Diane Dillon and Brad Wagenknecht and Ryan Gregory for their involvement in this project as well. So you got to see the press release, and we were very pleased that the paper did include that. And so that's basically my report. Lots of good news, and I'm going to start unpacking awards here in a moment to show you.
I also wanted to mention that I was elected to chair the Cal-LAFCO next year, so I'm very excited to do that. We had our first board meeting on Friday, I believe. And we've got, so it was Commissioner Leary's first board meeting. So, and I'm pushing and I'm still succeeding. And them all remain on Zoom except for our live meeting at the conference. We used to all have to, jump on airplanes and, have hotels. It just costs a lot of money, and you spent 10 times as much time getting to and fro these meetings, and luckily we're we're a 501c3, so we can still stay on Zoom, and we just have much greater attendance at, and missed all the great little goodies and meals and free lunches and stuff. But I think this is a much wiser use of our Cal LAFCO resources. So just wanted to mention that too.
Pardon me for not mentioning that, because I must say it is wonderful having Chair Moeller as the president of the Cal LAFCO board, because she keeps things moving. Boy, there's no fooling around there. And however, it's sad not to have her as treasurer anymore, because she was doing an excellent job at that as well. Thank
Well,
you.
I'll be sticking my nose into that. You can bet on that. too,
Hopefully,
so.
since the current one didn't have a lot of answers. So that would be great. Thank you.
So we're gonna do some photos.
Yes? Photos?
Yeah.
Awards?
Well, should we adjourn our meeting, Gary, or?
Yes, go ahead and adjourn.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn. Our next scheduled meeting is Monday, February the 5th, right here in this location at 2:00. So, thanks everybody.